because we never had the conversation.
I don't know.
But you just
I'm telling you what
it.
people are saying on comments, what I've read, and I'm talking for them. I'm not a bus driver. I'm speaking for the average person out there, because I feel for them, because the bus drivers and the average person are what keeps these lights on here on the Breakfast Club.
That's right.
They keep me booking shows.
Nobody is saying. Okay, first of all, this is not about you booking shows.
I'm just telling you how I feel. So when you shit on the people that ride with me, I'll ride
you're
with them.
dead ass.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, and I really appreciate your time. I'm going to be reacting to a few clips with Ebony K. Williams talking about her feelings, thoughts, opinions on black mediocrity in America, how black people need to do more, we need to do better, we need to pursue more, and why she feels she does not want to date a bus driver unless he owns the company. I'm going to be watching her interview with Iyanla Vanzant first, and then I'm going to be watching her response to the backlash, and then maybe I'll watch a few of the Breakfast Club clips where she basically doubles down, and I don't know. It doesn't look good for her. She's not really helping herself. But yeah, let's start with the interview with Iyanla.
Let's get to the logistics, though. Let's get to the logistics. We know that black women are earning college degrees faster than anybody else. Many of us are doing like we're doing, Iyanla. We're getting those terminal degrees, those JDs, MD, PhDs. We also are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, along with Latina women in America. Pew Research said that women are now out-earning men. Yes. In 22 of the largest cities in America, including where I live, New York, D.C., L.A., you name it. When we talk, and I know that you've said that you cannot teach a man or tell a man how to be a man, so I will not ask you to indict men in this question. But I do want you to speak, Iyanla, to how women need to, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if he owns the bus? If he owns it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Okay. Because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we are as women and who they are in this society. I would date a bus driver if he loved driving the bus, if he was a man of integrity, if he was good to his mama, if he treated me well. I would date a bus driver. But we think that it's another human being's responsibility to give us what we need instead of us building together. I can build with a bus driver. I'd have my little stash over on the side in my prenup, but I could build with a bus driver. So I think some of the criteria that we look for in the reality of today keeps us unhappy, keeps us angry, keeps us imbalance. And then when the men show up, we want to beat them up because they're not living up to our standards and criteria. And it's not working, beloved. It's just not working. So it's not that it's bad or wrong. It's obsolete. It's obsolete. We have to come up with a new way of being. I don't believe in carrying a man. A man has to do for himself. My son got his first job when he was 9. Okay? Because you're a black man, you will know how to take care of yourself. But I think the way we measure it, it's just obsolete.
So first of all, let me say this. I understand what Ebony says when she first starts talking and she starts framing a question. And she says to Iyanla, like, hey, a lot of women are doing things on their own, doing things for themselves, taking care of themselves. And to speak to kind of what Iyanla said in her Breakfast Club interview, a lot of women are acting masculine and doing a lot on their own. And It's because they are the most educated. They are earning these high-paying salaries. They're in positions to do for themselves. And then doubly on the same end of things, you have a lot of men who don't seem to be stepping up to the plate, who don't want to do what is required for you to be in a leadership position. They just, I don't know, like, and I can attest to this. I see it a lot online. I hear conversations and see conversations, witness conversations on social media where I see men saying things like, I don't want to pay bills, I don't want to lead, I don't want to have to protect women, I don't want to do any of that stuff. And I think to myself, okay, well, then I don't even know why you're discussing marriage or talking about marriage or even thinking about marriage or even having children or having commitment from a woman, because in order to get all of that, you need to be a certain type of man. I mean, ideally, of course, you have women making poor choices and falling victim to their poor choices. But most women, they start off wanting a certain type of man. They start off wanting to be with a certain type of man, especially when you're talking about marriage and long-term commitment. I believe that Ebony is saying here initially, like, as long as he owns the bus, then I could date him. But, you know, just being a bus driver, having an average job like a bus driver, working for somebody else, I don't believe that that was good enough for her. And so Iyanla goes on to say, well, what if he, you know, is passionate about it? If he's a good person, he treats his mother well, he has the correct character, would he still be valuable to you? And she goes on to say that a lot of women have expectations that don't necessarily reflect what will produce a long-term happy relationship. And they're focused on criteria that, you know, we hear on social media, you know, we see on sound bites, we see on TikTok, we see the manosphere and the level up movement, all of these sort of ideas being thrown around, and no one is really talking about what's necessary to maintain a happy, healthy relationship, because the whole point of all of these people talking and all of these different podcasts is to be provocative. It's not to be informative, it's to be provocative. And so Iyanla is kind of saying, like, all of these expectations that women have are putting them in a position where they are not able to be with a man once they get one, because they can't let go of these expectations, or they can't let go of playing a certain type of role. And so that's basically what they talk about. And earlier in this interview, Ebony said that the reason that she brought Iyanla on is because she wanted to specifically respond to some statements she made on the Breakfast Club, saying that women were basically, a lot of modern women nowadays are basically men in skirts. And Iyanla was basically talking about how women have lost connection to their femininity and they're not operating in their true purpose, and that's why so many young women are unhappy. And I think that's why Ebony brought her on this platform. So basically, there's backlash. This video goes viral. I think it's like 2 weeks old at this point, maybe a week old. And people are on social media currently right now dragging her, telling her there's nothing wrong with being a bus driver. There's nothing wrong with having a basic average job, being a 9-to-5 worker. Bus drivers have benefits, they have pensions, they, you know, provide stability for their family. It's honest, upstanding work. Girl, bye, you know? And so Ebony then comes back on the grill and she released a response video where she basically pivots the whole conversation from, this is my preference, this is how I felt, and here is why I said that, to, well, the actual issue is there's too much mediocrity in the Black community. We're too complacent. We don't want better for ourselves. We don't do better for ourselves. We don't pursue things that are more difficult. We need power. We need to lift ourselves out of financial poverty collectively. I want us to do better. It is my job to upset people. It's my job to rub people the wrong way, and I don't care. That's basically what she says. So I'm going to play a little bit of what she's saying, but that's basically what she says.
So let me be clear. First, I am a professional disruptor. So backlash is my business. And I will always take it on the chin for the sake of advancing the work, conversation, or movement. So know that I am completely unfazed by the onslaught of nasty comments, wishing me a sad, lonely, bitter existence until my untimely death. Now, that is some weird energy to be wishing onto a black woman, especially one who has dedicated her life to the liberation of black folk. But, whatever, I guess, go off. See, I wanted to talk about how do we close the gap between black women who do show up in a so-called masculine posture, those of us that are providing and building and protecting due to circumstances that we might feel make us feel that if we don't do it for ourselves, we will have to go without the resources and protections we need to feel safe in this world. But Dr. Iyanla went in a different direction. She asked me a personal question. And y'all know I have been extremely transparent about the fact that my life choices and my chosen lifestyle are far outside of the norm. So when I said that I would date the bus owner, a lot of y'all heard something different. Some of you heard the following. Bus drivers are whack. Bus drivers are broke. Oh, and I'm too good for a bus driver. The only thing is, y'all made that part up. See, I said what I said. But then some of y'all started talking about salaries and hourly wages, pensions and benefits. And that's wild because I was never talking about money at all. I was talking about black ownership. But some of y'all made it about money.
So I understand that she's saying that maybe in her daily work and like the sort of things that she talks about on her platforms is more specifically to deal with black liberation financially. And economically. But I feel she is trying to pivot away from it being about her dating preferences and turn it into black people look at yourselves, black people see what you are doing wrong, black people elevate, do better, want better, that whole thing. And I get that there is a place and time for that conversation. And when she goes in a breakfast club, that's pretty much what she spends most of her time talking about, that she wants better for black people. She wants us to pursue excellence, to do those things that are not average, that go beyond the average, that go beyond the mediocre, push for more, do more. That's her whole thing, because she feels that will give us better grounds, more control of our lives, will take us out of poverty. And again, there's a conversation for that, and I do understand where she's coming from overall, right? However, I feel like what she did do, and maybe because the entire point of the griot releasing that clip was to be salacious, was to have her comments be taken a negative way to facilitate engagement, that what she said was a bit dismissive. It was problematic because it suggested that the bus driver was not worthy of her time, someone in her, of her status and her, where she is in her career, the level that she's on, and that only someone who was an entrepreneur would be. And again, if that's her personal preference, I'm not really here to argue that. And I saw a lot of women online defending her on the grounds of, if she was a white woman and she said this, no one would care. And I just really want to say before I move on and talk about why I feel like a bus driver is perfectly fine to date, it's very important that when black women are, again, putting down one notion to pick up another notion, that they still remain critical and they still remain capable of understanding nuance. And I feel like a lot of times when black women join these movements, the divestment movement, the Black Girls in Luxury movement, the Level Up movement, all of these movements that promise to center black women and focus on black women accessing certain lifestyles that may not have been accessible to our mothers or our grandmothers, that we do not lose the ability to become critical about some of the things that we are picking up. In particular, accessing luxury and what will come with that. And a lot of times what comes with accessing luxury is elitism. Elitism is not a character trait that you should want to pick up. It is not a behavior that you should want to pick up just because you see white women doing it. There should be some sort of awareness that, oh, I want to pick up centering myself. I want to pick up making myself feel valid and holding space for myself, but I'm not going to pick up elitism. I'm not going to pick up other white supremacist behaviors so I can feel close to luxury. And so I do understand that she can have her preferences. She can feel how she feels. She can want to date who she wants to date. But she initially, again, I believe it was intentional, especially by the platform who put her comments out there. She was saying that a bus driver is not good enough for her. Now, I wanted to very quickly address this. I feel as though a bus driver would be good enough for her, especially considering the fact that she has had so many failed relationships, right? And has she come across a bus driver that was responsible, that wanted to protect her, wanted to take care of her, with the good money that he does make, provided safety for her, stepped in and did little things for her that she would typically have to do herself or hire someone else to do. If a bus driver were able to provide Ebony K. Williams with those feelings of security that she has clearly not been able to get from any of the other men that she had dated in her past, I think she would be perfectly fine with that bus driver, because being a bus driver does not mean that you are stupid or that your character is not good, or who you are as a person decreases in value because you're doing a certain type of job. It's not even indicative of your intelligence or potential. And I think that the reason why people dragged her so much is because there are a lot of men who work these jobs, these blue collar jobs, bus drivers, garbage men, contractors, electricians, HVAC guys, who have these jobs that require great skill, actually, that require dedication, and again, provide things like benefits and pensions that can help stabilize and provide for families, that I think is extremely commendable, that I think is extremely trustworthy. And I think, again, if the character matches with that person, that with that man specifically, that provides that feeling of safety, that provides that feeling of comfort, I think that's absolutely what should be the most important. Not that he has to be an entrepreneur. Is he the sort of man that you can trust with your life? Is he the sort of man that you can trust with your children's life? Because I think the problem is when you start attributing husband qualities to just a bank account or a certain type of career, I think that's where a lot of women can run into trouble, because just because a man makes a certain amount of money and just because a man has a certain amount of influence and power does not mean that he's going to be a good husband to you. It does not mean he's going to be a good father to your children. And kind of going back to what Iyanla was saying, we focus so much on things that don't matter. Social media has so many people caught up running around in circles, not even realizing that these people are not saying these things to help you. They're saying these things to get community engagement. They're saying these things to cause conversation, to cause strife, to be provocative, to be upsetting, to ruffle feathers. They're not saying these things so they can be helpful to you. That's just the truth of the matter. And you have to become thoughtful, and you have to become very selective of what you listen to. I'm on social media all the time, and I see it all the time. I see men talking about how they don't want to do what is required of a husband. I see women online talking about how they don't want to do what's required of a wife. I see men talking about how they don't want to lead, protect, provide. I see women online talking about how they don't want to cook, clean, nurture, any of these things. And so what it really comes down to is you have people saying they want to be in these sort of relationships, and they want to be in these traditional relationships, but they don't want to do things traditionally. And like I say, and like I will always say, it is very important to do that introspective work and really know and understand who you are as a person, and really know and understand what it is that you can realistically do long term. If you do not want to be a husband, if you do not want to provide and protect, then you don't need to be worried about that. Leave that to the men who want to do it. Leave that to them. Don't have children. Don't try to have long-term relationships with women. Stay single and float. Same to the women. If for whatever reason you cannot allow a man to be a man, you don't want to provide love, nurturing, a loving, nurturing environment. You don't want to cook, clean, child rear. You don't want to have any of those traditional expectations on you as a woman. I don't know. Because relationships are transactional at the end of the day. That's what they are. And certain types of men are going to have certain expectations, and certain type of women are going to have certain expectations. And in order to be in a long-term, happy, successful relationship, it has to be symbiotic. You have to be giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. You can't just show up and expect someone to just love you and be with you unconditionally, regardless of what you give and regardless of what you contribute. That's not real life. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. So that's really all I have to say on this topic. I'm not going to play the Breakfast Club interview because she's basically just saying more of what she's kind of saying in her monologue on the griot. She's not really owning the fact that she doesn't feel a bus driver is good enough for herself. And DJ Envy is trying to hold her accountable. Charlamagne's trying to hold her accountable, and it's not really going that way. But that's all I have to say on this topic. Please make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Make sure you have your notifications bell turned on because I don't have a posting schedule. I don't. So if you don't want to miss any of my commentary, make sure your notifications are turned on. Please get in the comments and let me know how you feel. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.